Hello and welcome to Between Two Servers, the show where we talk about multiplayer game development and netcode. I'm here today with Ian Proulx, the co-founder and CEO of 1047 Games, creator of Splitgate. Welcome to the show, Ian.
Thanks for having me, Glenn.
Cool, awesome. So Splitgate, Halo meets Portal. Let's show everybody a little bit about what it looks like, and we'll chat more after we get back. So Ian, Halo and Portal, where did you get the idea?
Yeah, I mean, so really the original idea had nothing to do with Halo. It was really just, I played Portal. I played Portal 2, I mean, probably 10 years ago while I was a high school kid, and just absolutely fell in love with the concept of portals. I thought it was the most brilliant, mind-boggling mechanic I'd ever seen.
It's just a fantastic game. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and I, being the FPS fan that I was, thought to myself, man, I would love to see this in a shooting game. That's what I typically play outside of Portal.
Right.
And I just kind of had this vision of like, what would it be like if I could, spawn a portal behind somebody over there and then shoot them in the back, or if I could spawn a portal underneath somebody's feet and drop them to their death. And really, it was just an idea for the longest time. A few years later, I went to Stanford, studied computer science. I didn't know if I wanted to get into game development. I mean, gaming was a passion of mine. I had this idea in the back of my head, but I didn't think I'd do anything with it.
How long did you have it in your head? How long has this been bouncing around?
Since 2011 when I played Portal 2.
Wow. Awesome.
And so I actually, I went to Stanford and studied computer science. They didn't really have a gaming track. But I really wanted to learn, at least get some exposure to gaming. So I talked to my advisor, who was awesome. And I basically said, hey, I'd like to learn Unreal Engine 4. There's no class here that teaches that. Can I do this for my senior project? Can I build a prototype of a game?
That's
and
cool.
He was incredibly supportive. He actually put me in touch with a couple of people that he knew from Epic Games as just sort of resources for if I have questions. And I basically had a quarter to just go crazy with it. And, of course, if I'm going to learn Unreal Engine and build something, I'm going to build the idea that I've had for the last few years, which is an FPS game with portals. And I enjoyed building it. Again, didn't think I'd turn it into anything. It wasn't actually until it was the weekend before the senior project fair. At the senior project fair, I'm going to have a bunch of setups where there's going to be a lot of foot traffic. People are going to be playing the game for hours. And going into it,
set up like a big ass LAN party for it.
Basically, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
It was like a trade show, like a PAX East, right? On a smaller scale.
So let me guess, you packed it out.
Well, it's actually the prior to that where I have the aha moment. But I did pack it out. But especially when you're at the senior project fair, do you want to play a video game or do you want to go look at some random machine?
I don't know, Ian. It's a tough choice.
Exactly. But, it was actually the weekend before. So up until this point, I've only tested on my own 2 PCs. So I don't even know if the thing runs on 3 or more PCs. I have no idea if it's fun because I've been limited to just testing by myself. So I asked 7 of my friends, can you guys come play test this thing?
Right.
I need to make sure it works.
So this is just to see if it runs before you do the actual.
Exactly.
Seniors. Yeah.
So I don't have a nightmare, where everything is broken. And I asked them, and of course, no one wants to because everyone's got final exams in a few days. They've got final papers, final programs, final projects. So we're all busy. But I get them to agree. Okay, we'll bring our gaming PCs. We'll play for 45 minutes straight. And we ended up playing for 5 hours. Okay. And that was the aha moment for me, where none of us had time to be doing this. But we were so hooked that we couldn't put it down, even in this compelling, super rough prototype with 1 map and 1 gun. And everything about it was rough around the edges. But, the thing was, this really validated, Portal in an FPS. It works. It's extremely addicting. It's fundamentally different than anything I've ever played.
Yeah.
And I think specifically what kept us going during that time was, there was this very natural skill curve where, the first hour we're playing it like it's Halo or like it's Call of Duty. We're just shooting stuff, having a good time.
And now you're all leveling up on strategies.
We're all leveling up, right? So we're kind of
emergent gameplay is coming out.
Exactly, the Portal skills, and kind of honestly very similar to a Rocket League or a Fortnite, where it's like you can pick it up, turn your brain off, have fun with it. But then as you start to develop this skill set, it turns into a different game. And by the end of those 5 hours, I mean, we were playing a different game. I mean, it was just like portaling all over the place. And even, today, comparing what the pros of today are able to do to what we did 5 hours in, I mean, it's just ridiculous. So, and then, at that point, I went to the project fair. People loved it. Although the bar is pretty low for a senior project fair where you're the only video game and everybody else is, naturally people want to come to the video game booth. But at that point, really started thinking, maybe I do go pursue this full time. Maybe I'm onto something.
That's awesome. So you launched your beta May 24th, 2019.
Yep.
Why did you go for like, I'm going to go put this in a beta? Why did you do that in the whole free to play thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think, our kind of viewpoint going into this was that, kind of the traditional route is very outdated. If you think of most games and, granted, when we got started, this was before, we started on this thing in 2017 or really 2016, but we started before Fortnite, Apex, Call of Duty, right? Free to play wasn't much of a thing, but our thinking from the get-go was, I would rather put out my product as soon as I have my MVP, rather just put it out there because that's how I'm going to learn. And it doesn't really make sense. If you think of the traditional gaming approach, it's very hit driven. It's very much, spend years and years developing your product, get it as good as you can, and then pour all your marketing into the first few weeks.
The reality is you're going to spend 5 years baking everything into stone and then launching it. And then players are going to tell you, actually, no, you need to get what you found, which is that spark of immediate fun with temp maps, with the first prototype, and then it begins. So you're kind of looking at like, I'm going to do a live service. Were you thinking at this time like it would turn into a live service game, or you were just let's just get it out there?
Yeah,
no, you were going for live service. Okay,
it was always live service. I mean, it was always the thinking. I mean, we kind of internally said, okay, we're going to take a Silicon Valley startup approach to running a game company. So the thought process was, we're just, as soon as we have our MVP, we're putting it out there. We're going to learn a ton. We know we're not going to have it right on day one. We didn't even have monetization on day one because our thought was, who cares? Like, we don't need to make money on day one. So let's just put it out. We'll learn, we'll iterate. And then once we've iterated, once we have good metrics, that's when I want to spend money on marketing. I'd rather spend money marketing
you're gonna take the marketing spend and throw it, and then the new player experience won't be there. A little churn out, you won't get the engagement you need.
Exactly. It's just too risky to do, and especially as an indie game, like you don't have the budget where you can afford to, make a mistake. So that was kind of the original thinking. I mean, to be quite honest, I mean, we definitely thought we would do better than we did in 2019. Like, we knew that this was our MVP and that there was going to be a lot of learning. But we also thought, oh, we've got a really fun game, which we did. We didn't realize that there's so much that goes into making a successful game.
There's so much behind the scenes.
Beyond a fun game, right? Like you have to have
the meta, the meta behind it. Once you have the fun core loop, you got to have the meta
and the onboarding and the grindability. I mean, there's just so much more to it. And that was really a bit of a rude awakening for us, where it's like, oh wow, like people are leaving instantly. They're not matchmaking, ELO. Console ports, all of the sort of crazy stuff that you guys had to do after this launch. I mean, you must have surprised yourself just with the sheer intensity of how much you needed to chew and how quickly to keep the players happy. How did you prioritize when you saw that? What did you choose to bite off first? Yeah, I mean, I think so. The first thing we pretty quickly realized, part of it was anecdotal, just like, we watched a lot of Twitch streams to try to see what's going on. So we definitely had a pretty good idea. And then we started asking questions and diving into the data. And when we first launched, we didn't have a data pipeline yet, so we weren't tracking stuff. It was like a very slow manual
So
process.
the data pipeline was the first thing that you built because then you drove everything else from it?
Not exactly.
Okay.
So the initial process was, all of us would have our theories. We'd look at Twitch, we'd look at Twitter, Discord, and we'd start to ask questions. And one of those first questions I asked was like, I feel like people are getting destroyed in their first game, and they're not sticking around because they're getting destroyed so badly. And then we looked. I would then ask an engineer, hey, can you write a script to pull some of this data? Yeah. And lo and behold, we found out 59% of new users were getting obliterated in their very first game, and half of those users wouldn't even play a second game. Yep. Right. And we saw that anecdotally, where people would come in and we're watching this and we're like, what the heck? Like, just stick with it, right? You want to kind of scream at the TV, right? It's like
fickle players,
give it a little bit of time, right? If you give it a little bit of time, you'll figure it out. But you don't have a little bit of time, right? You have to make an experience that is
they're getting punished. They're getting actively punished. And they needed that same experience that you and your buddies had when you all learned it together. So exactly. How did you do it?
Well, it was a couple things. I mean, the first major improvement that we made was we figured, okay, we got to redo our matchmaking system. Yeah. Our matchmaker is terrible. It's really, I can dive into that if you're interested, but the gist of it was a very bad system that we had that was causing a lot of these issues.
What were the symptoms? Just a skill mismatch? What was primarily that? Okay.
Well, so I'll just dive into it.
The noob stomp. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we did is we actually brought back the Halo 2 1 to 50 ranking system. If you're familiar with that, that had a couple of very, very fundamental issues. And the funny thing is, we thought this was going to be great because like there's all this nostalgia for Halo 2 and specifically its ranking system. Yeah. And at the time you look back at it and you're like, oh, this was such a great system back in the day. But it's there's a reason that no one uses this system anymore, and that
everyone's moved on. Yeah.
And the two key issues were, number one is everybody comes in at rank 1. So instead of starting in the middle and trying to quickly figure out like, how are you above average, below average? It's like, nope, you're starting at rank 1. Yeah. And then it would take dozens of hours to grind to rank up, and you have to win, but it's a very slow process. It's not trying to quickly get you to your appropriate rank. And what happened was we would have users, they would come in, and the first few days, right, our biggest fans who were grinding 8 hours a day, they got to rank 30, 40, 50. And then they got into a state where the matchmaker, even with 10,000 plus players online, matchmaker would say, oh, well, you're rank 40. You can't play with these 10s and 20s and 30s. Yeah. And so these who are our super fans would get into a state where they're not getting a map.
Yeah.
And so one of two things would happen. Either A, they would quit, which sucks because you just lost one of your biggest fans, or B, which happened more often than A, is it's a free to play game. They would just quit, make a new account,
grind again,
and come back in at rank 1. And so there was just this endless cycle where basically every new user, like the people who are coming in, the rank 1s were a combination of new players and the best players in the game. Yeah. And so it was just this vicious cycle that got inherently worse and worse over time, where, people would just get stomped and there was no end in sight. So the first thing we did is we said, okay, screw nostalgia. We need a modern system. Let's do what everybody else.
It needs to converge fast. To catch those people who redo.
So let's start people in the middle. And let's have 10 placement matches where we can very quickly look at like, okay, let's get you as soon as possible. You're whatever, you're above average, you're below average. The other thing we did is we added a tutorial. People had no idea how to even play the game. So that was kind of an obvious low-hanging fruit.
What about team balancing? Did you get any good low-hanging fruit there with like sort of splitting up the really cool ones on one team and then a couple cool ones on the other team to balance it out? Or how did that go? Was that impactful?
It's just averages, right? So we would just look at ELO.
So you're trying to get like the same sum ELO or the average ELO on the two teams and balance.
Yeah, get the same average, and within like a range. You don't want to have the best player and the worst player against two mediocre players, right?
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
You do like a queuing system too? So I saw on your matchmaking on your website a good post about it. You do like you bracket under a certain amount of latency and then you slowly expand, and you can take 3 to 5 minutes to find a match. Do you think it's necessary for your game type to have that sort of queue-based matchmaking to get the quality of match that you're looking for?
I do. And
okay.
Actually we're changing things, and I can talk about that in detail as well.
Go for it. Yeah, very curious.
Yeah. So the current way that the matchmaker works, which is 1,000 times better than the Halo 2 system, is we look at the oldest ticket, right? There's slight differences between ranked and casual, but without going into detail, the gist of it is we look at the oldest ticket, right? So we say, okay, Glenn, you've waited the longest.
I really need to get into a game. This guy's been hanging.
And then we say, okay, let's try to make you a game. And based on how long you've waited, we look at servers.
So we also kind of coalesce other games around me as that really old ticket. Is that how it starts?
Well, we're trying to coalesce individuals. So we say, okay, you've waited the longest. Let's go down the list. And based on how long you've waited, we have an ever expanding range of what is allowed, right? So like if you've waited 30 seconds, we're only looking at players that are really close to your skill range. If you've waited a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, we expand that range. The problem with that system is what ends up happening often is we're trying to make right now we prioritize the oldest ticket first, but then we also prioritize let's make as many games as possible each tick. So we say, okay, let's try to get Glenn a game. He's waited the longest. And then let's say there's 5 people that are within your skill range on that given tick. The problem is you don't then get to keep those players. We say, okay, there's only 5. Well, we need to get to 8. Okay, so discard this. We can't make.
So you don't have a memory from each tick to each tick?
Correct. So we then go to the second oldest ticket, and then that guy, we say, oh, well, let's say he's a slightly lower rank than Glenn. Well,
so he'll kind of grab everything.
Right. He'll grab those people away from you. And so what we've seen recently is, and we've got plenty of players, but we'll end up sometimes getting games that they're not horrible like they used to be, but they're not nearly as good as they should be because we try, but the people on the edges end up getting a game that, we've tried 5 times and now we've had to expand wider than we really should need to.
Right.
And now we have to pull people that aren't really in your range. I mean, they're closer. It's not like the best player against a brand new user like it used to be. But so anyway, the solution is instead of doing it this way, we're going to build a game over time. So with our new system,
now you have the memory.
Exactly. So we can say, smart. Okay, there's 3 people that fit Glenn's elo on this tick. Okay, here you go.
It's a little glob and it gets stickier and it tends to coalesce over time. Yeah. Okay. I get that. That's really cool. Hey, so let's say I mean, your game's a very competitive game, right? Like it's an arena-based game, no late joiner, I assume. And it's all about matching up the teams and playing for the round length, or do you do late join?
So for ranked, you can't join in progress. For quick play, I think we let you join in the first minute.
Okay. Does that help relax the matchmaking constraints a bit, especially if someone leaves? That would be definitely. What's your opinion when someone leaves on a team-based game? I mean, that's definitely.
Yeah, I mean, we have bots. Yeah, we have bots to replace. It's not perfect, but it's
Okay.
It prevents the game from being ruined, right? So, if you're playing a quick play game, especially, it's like if somebody leaves mid-game, 4v3, unplayable, not fun.
Yeah.
4v3 in a bot, not ideal, but it's still playable. It still works.
But in ranked, you won't do it because it just isn't really the spirit.
Well, we actually do in ranked as well. If somebody, if somebody quits mid-game, just because it's you're still at a huge disadvantage, but at least the game is not permanently ruined for the rest of everybody.
Did you play around with like quitting penalties or anything like that?
Yeah, we have quitting penalties. Right now, it's simple. It's just like a 10-minute ban. I think we're going to, with this next update, it's going to be a little stricter where, you quit the first time, maybe it's 10 minutes, you quit the second time, it gets worse, etc.
Yeah. Like exponential.
Yeah.
Very cool.
We haven't done that yet just because we've had, I mean, we don't have a ton of bugs or disconnects, but we've had enough where it's like, we'd like to get this a little more bulletproof so that if a user quits and it's not their fault, they're not getting harshly punished. But I think, so, in December, we've got a pretty big update with a lot of backend changes and matchmaking changes and stability improvements that I think, we're going to feel more we'll feel more comfortable being harsher with, and more confident that people quitting.
That false positive is just a guaranteed player churn. It's like you've got to be so confident that it's real, and it's not like, I crashed, I'm sorry, I banned you for 10 minutes as well. You're welcome, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'm really kind of curious as well on your thoughts on crossplay. So I noticed that you have Xbox, PlayStation, and PC doing crossplay. Why do you do that? And what are the benefits and what are the disadvantages of crossplay in your mind?
I mean, I think the obvious benefits are it's just more players to pool from in matchmaking. And I mean, to the user, if you have friends on other systems, right? Like, that's
totally.
Obviously, fun. You get to play with like your Xbox friends or your PlayStation friends. The disadvantage, obviously, you always have people that complain like, oh, controller aim assist is too powerful, or, no, controller's not, you can't possibly compete with the mouse and keyboard players. What are you talking about?
These two things can't be true at the same time.
Right, exactly. I think we've got it really well balanced, to be honest. Cool. I mean, we've gone through a lot of iteration. We have, if you look at the top 50 leaderboards, we've got players on consoles and on PCs. If you look at the Pro League, the top team is all mouse and keyboard, but the second place team has 2 controller players. The 6th place and the 4th place team have controller players. So I mean, there's a lot of, it's pretty well balanced. I think right now you're definitely at if I had to pick, I think mouse and keyboard is 1% better than controller. But you can absolutely be a top tier player on either. So
the benefits of increasing the player pool, getting more people for matching and bringing people together across platform outweigh the very slight risks, of keyboard versus
I think so.
Vice versa.
I think so. I mean, it's not, there's no right answer. I think for where we're at, it makes the most sense.
How did it go with How did it go with the platform holders? Because historically, over the last 5 years, it's been tough to get a crossplay game through. Did you, obviously having the game out and having it on PC and like, I want to bring this to your platform, but to bring this, I would need to do crossplay, right?
It's gotten a lot easier.
Has it? Okay, good.
Yeah. I mean, there's certain requirements, but it's just basically like, hey, if you follow these rules, you've got a thumbs up from us.
Yeah. Oh, good stuff. So tell me a bit about your backend now. So you've got the matchmaker and all the telemetry services and all that sort of stuff. So I understand that to date that's homegrown. Where do you guys host it? What language did you develop it in, and where are you going with it?
So we're in a bit of a transition right now. So our whole backend, we actually wrote the whole thing from scratch in TypeScript. It's all through AWS. I mean, we did a good job.
I would love to have a typed language running on my back end. That's just I do Golang just for that reason, but I would be like terrified of like executing like a line of code that goes whoop, no, null or syntax error.
Well, so we are definitely so we're in the middle of transitioning actually. Okay. So we are right now, everything is custom. It's our own system that we've built. I mean, I think we've done an amazing job.
Kudos, because most people don't even go out there and realize that they can do their own back end, let alone scale it up fast enough to keep up with their player base. It's very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, and that's been a big dilemma for us is like, do we keep doing this or do we switch over to somebody else's system? And ultimately, we did decide to switch over to Excelbyte. Okay. We've gotten to know June and his team, and they're awesome people. I think they've got amazing tech.
So what's their website?
Excelbyte.
So excelbyte.io. Where are they based and what do they do?
I don't actually know where they're based, but
Hello,
So
Excelbyte. You're awesome, and you're on
they
the
are
internet.
awesome. I will vouch for them. Their backend is a service, right? So I think
Okay.
kind of the thinking is just as you use Unreal Engine to build your game, you use Excelbyte to build your backend, right? And that doesn't mean that we have zero work and that we don't have to do anything. But what it does mean is that I can hire an engineering team to focus on features instead of, what we've been doing, which is just scale, 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 scale. And then it's like, well, we don't have time to do features because we're a very tiny team and all we can focus on is scale and bugs, right? So I think that was kind of the ultimate deciding factor for us is, we've got this product that works and we can build off of it and they can worry about scale. We can worry about features, the fun stuff, right? The stuff that our player base cares about. And hopefully we don't have to worry about outages and, everything, right? So, and it also just means I don't have to hire 30 backend engineers to build.
Which is probably some of the toughest people to hire. I mean, it's hard enough getting a network engineer, a network client server programmer, or getting gameplay programmers who can work and do netcode. Although the Unreal Engine does, it makes a lot of things a little bit more easier coming out, as a fully formed networked game library and editor out of the box client server. I mean, well, some of the other people that I know, so Apex Legends, I used to work at Respawn, and I chatted with some of my Respawn folks in the last few months, and they said, yeah, we've now split. Like there's live ops team, and then there's dev, and it's totally, and that was never a thing when I was there. So
interesting. Yeah.
So that's their approach. I think they've kind of like, no, I'm doing bugs, and I'm like, it's not just DevOps on the live ops. It's like live ops engineer. There's operations engineers,
right?
But there's like a really slow, deliberate release cycle, and then it goes to ops. And this is just a very, very high level, but that's sort of like you're turning Excelbyte into the operations team effectively for your game.
Pretty much, yeah. Cool. So it's also, I mean, the other thing is, they're basically, I mean, they're temporarily, at least, they're functioning as an extension of our team.
I figured so.
They've been super helpful in actually helping us port everything over. So we're not, because there's a lot of custom stuff we have to do. Just with our whole system, we do a lot of fancy things. So,
but you definitely don't want to go backwards in terms of functionality or all the things that you've learned since you launched. Okay, so where do you host your game servers? So you do AWS with TypeScript right now. You're transitioning to Excelbyte. Do you do your game servers in AWS too?
We do.
Okay. Yeah. So was it just keep it all in AWS? It's easy. Everyone uses AWS.
I think
what do your thought process go?
I think for now we're just sticking with that because it's easy. But I think we're also, cost savings. Like cost is not the number one priority right now, right? Like right now,
player experience always the number
player
one
experience,
priority.
right? So, I mean, actually with our own backend, we had it set up where we did our own auto scaling and we could deploy game servers across multiple. We could spin up digital servers. Yeah, exactly. So we could try to kind of spin up the cheaper servers instead of AWS. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure we'll probably do that. And I mean, Excelbyte probably.
It's this endless amounts of optimization that you can do over the next 5 years.
Exactly. So, but right now we want to optimize for other things before we worry too much about server costs.
Awesome. So right now, it seems like the biggest challenge you're facing right now is the transition for your back end. And the good news is, of course, is congratulations. You've just raised a 100 million round. So amazing. I don't know how to spend $100 million, but maybe you could tell me. What do you plan on doing with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
It's a ludicrous amount of money. Come on.
It is. It's a lot. I think part of my
good on you. Good on you. Like
thank you.
It's impressive, but it's also like an obligation. It's like I've got so much money from investors, and now I need to create a return on this investment.
You gotta execute, right? Like the bar is much higher. I mean, I think the $100 million round, it just gives us freedom and flexibility to do everything we could possibly dream of, right? So in terms of hiring, it allows us to just be really aggressive and go get the best people, and we don't have to cut corners. We don't have to, I mean, My philosophy, I mean, I told my artists, my art team, I was like, tell me who you want to hire. Like, you want to hire them? Let's go get them. Like, you know,
So that's a really good way to use that.
If you've got 30 people that you want to hire them all, you know, I mean, assuming they're good and they're good culture fits and good people.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you know, I don't want to hire assholes, or I don't want to hire people that aren't talented, but you know, before it was like, okay, well, we can afford to hire 3 people here and 1 person there. And now it's like, nope, like, let's go build the best art team on the planet. And I mean, the people we've hired, which we're going to be announcing soon, but we're hiring some of the top tier artists in the industry.
Brilliant.
And, you know, just the scale of what they can do and the ideas that they have. I mean, it's got me so excited. It's like, it's just a different level.
Exciting times.
The other thing that's really exciting is, I mean, our whole team, you know, we're a bunch of learners, and everybody, like, that was my first concern, is like, you know, we've got great people on the team already. I didn't want the new people to kind of come in, and then it's like, you know, do the existing artists feel like, well, you know, we built this thing, and, you know, who are these guys to tell us we should do it differently? But that's not been the attitude at all. The attitude from everybody has been, oh my God, you hired this guy. I get
to learn from this guy.
I want to learn from this guy. You know, it's a dream. So anyway,
that's incredibly fortunate. So how's the engineering shaping up? What's your plan down the engineering side?
Yeah, engineering is definitely slower and harder to hire. We did just hire another engineer a week ago, actually.
Congrats.
We're super excited about. He's starting December 1st. We are, I just made an offer to another one today. I think we're going to get him. He kind of verbally was like, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm going to accept this. Let me get back to you, before I fully commit. So, you know, I think we're in very good shape. We've got some other leads. I think, you know, the thing for us is, we're trying not to grow too fast, or lower the bar, really.
Oh yeah.
You know, there's definitely that immediate pressure of like, man, I got to hire 50 people, and, you know, I want them to start yesterday. But I think what I've sort of realized is, you know, we've gotten here today because we've maintained such a ridiculously high bar in terms of just talent. And I don't want to lose that, you know, just because we've got $100 million, it doesn't mean like, oh, well, now we can hire more people. So
there's also a culture that you've got to preserve as well. What makes your studio work the way that it works? And then everyone else comes in, and if you bring too many people in at the same time, the culture can get diluted and lost.
Yeah. So we're trying to be very, very strict and kind of true to our core, true to our culture, and just maintain that insanely high bar that we've always had. So it's been slow, but every single person I've hired so far, I have 110% faith and confidence in, and has been an amazing person to work with already. So I'm very happy about that.
Awesome. Sounds like a great process. So a lot of network engineers and game developers watch the show. So for anyone watching the show, they want to go work on Splitgate, they want to work with you as an engineer. How do they do it?
Well, I guess I would say I can give you a link.
Go to the website and apply, and have a chat to Ian and see if you can work on Splitgate. So Ian, thanks a lot for taking the time tonight. It's really great to hear all the details behind your story and some of the challenges going into beta and launching your game. Congratulations on your funding. And I'm excited to see what you guys do next.
Thank you, Glenn. Really appreciate you having me.
All right. Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Here's the hard truth. The internet doesn't care about your game. After all the blood, sweat and tears you put into making your game, you launch, and some players get terrible network performance. What can you do about it? Build your own internet? This is why we created Network Next. Network Next is a radically new way of linking networks together. It's a new internet. One where networks compete on a neutral marketplace to carry your game's traffic. Network Next puts you, the game developer, in control of the network. We monitor every player's network performance, and you choose when to accelerate them. Not only will you see better network performance for your players, you'll also have the security of knowing that if one network is congested, we switch to another in seconds. Now you control the network.